mighty fine. Welcome to All Guitars Buzz, the weekly guitar-centric podcast that dives into a variety of topics, including guitar repair, building, what's on my bench, guitar news worth mentioning, customer stories, buying, selling, trading, along with existential, philosophical breakthroughs. If this sounds like something you would be into, stick around. I have an email, allguitarsbuzz, so if you want to weigh in on the show, go ahead and shoot me an email. I played a show on Saturday. It was the firefighter benefit Motor for Minds, and it was a success. It was a 2-hour set, and we played all our favorite rockabilly country songs, and it really was a wonderful event. Speaking of shows, May 24th, 2026, I have a show at the Tower Bar with my band, the Black Jackets. We're playing with Project Skeleton. That's going to be a good one. We had a lot of guitars come in on consignment. We had a True Tone Archtop, a Wilson, a cheap Resonator Univox 12-string 335 style Univox, kind of like the Aria style basses, a Teisco style guitar, and a Ventura Gretsch copy. So out of all those ones, the one that I found really interesting was the Wilson. Those are made in central eastern Italy, and it is just a wild guitar. It has kind of like organ push buttons. You can select what pickups are active, and the neck plate on the back is curved to match the body. It's really interesting. I posted it on my shorts on my YouTube channel. Another one that was super cool is the Ventura Gretsch copy. This looks just like a Chet Atkins, and when I say just like, I mean excuse me. Sometimes when you look at these made in Japan copies, the shape isn't quite right. It just looks off. This one, the shape looks exactly like my 64 Chet Atkins double cut. The only thing that's a little funky are the two switches on the upper bout. They're a little closer together than on my Gretsch, and the knobs on the bottom by the jack are a little closer together, and instead of a master volume, it has another toggle switch, so a total of 3 toggle switches. And man, I am just, also the neck pickup is slanted. I'm frothing and a foaming over this thing, and I'm trying not to acquire any more guitars, but maybe for business reasons, research and development, I might have to acquire that one. There's also another cool thing about it is the Bigsby. It's not a Bigsby, it's a copy, but it doesn't look like a cheap Teisco. It looks like it's got its own thing going, but it just looks quality. And I have yet to plug it in, tune it up. It is a bolt-on neck. The only thing that's cheesy about it is the neck. The headstock doesn't look right at all. So if I were to get it, I think one of the things that I would do is I would make a neck for it. And also, there's so much going on about this guitar. I'm just kind of rambling at this point, but the finish is messed up. It has it almost looks like bubbling due to heat, like all over the guitar. And somebody even thought from a distance it was like sparkle or speckle, like it's that much. Also, it has the painted on F-holes, and instead of the big Gretsch back pad on the back, it has a small access towards the jack on the back, a small square where you can access the pots inside. That is a guitar tech's dream. So I just described this guitar totally backwards, out of order, but man, I'm in love with that guitar, and I haven't even plugged it in. That's the way it goes, right? The True Tone Archtop has, it's just like a K Archtop, but it has a separation. The heel is separating from the body, so that needs to be fixed. The Univox 12-string, those have their issues with frets and the neck angle, etc. The Teisco style guitar, that just looks like any other kind of SG, unnecessarily pointy, Teisco, small body, but the pickups are super cool. Instead of like plastic covers, they're molded some type of alloy tin and whatever. And the pickups look really cool. It's extremely microphonic, but we just set that one up. We were able to get a bar for its tremolo system. It was missing one, so we got a bar and retrofitted it on there, so that's hanging up for sale. So that's pretty cool. What's on my bench? It's been a little over a week, and we have a lot to talk about. The Elvis Costello Jazzmaster, I finished it. I put on a new switch. I took off work Saturday to play that show, so I'm not sure if the customer picked it up. We'll see, but everything went good there. He also had a walnut Stratocaster that I changed the plastics on. So it was a walnut body and neck, and it had a black pick guard, but then white pickup covers, white knobs, and a white switch tip. They were like yellow. They had been aged, but the customer wanted black, and he supplied the black plastics, and I agree. I think that was a much cooler look. So, this guy obviously has a style. He likes that walnut kind of a look, and that was a perfect guitar for his collection. I have the Ventura Les Paul bolt-on neck that I've been refretting and fixing up. I finished that, and I had to do a fret level twice. So this happens sometimes. I find it happens on the cheaper guitars where you're not sure that the wood is quality. Maybe it's even poplar, who knows what grain direction it's going. And you put the neck in the jig and you do everything like you're supposed to. And then you come back the next day and check it, and you got some high frets. And I don't think that's, weird for cheaper guitars. So the second fret level I just did a light pass and created even more fall away than there was before. And it was fine. I installed Tone Rider Alnico 2 P90s in there and Lux Bumblebee oil-filled caps. This is a whole conversation here with the caps. The Tone Rider Alnico 2s, they sounded good. They sounded like Fat Cats. They were like a P90 in a humbucker form factor. The pickups that I took out of there were interesting looking. It looked like they were some sort of maybe single coil in a humbucker wrapper, but the pickup rings were unusually long, as some Venturas are, and they had 2 holes on one side for the pickup height adjustment and 1 hole on the other. So for the Tone Rider, I had to drill a hole in between the 2 on the one side, if that makes sense. So you could mount a standard humbucker in there. So I did that with the rings, and then the Bumblebee oiled filled caps. So my coworker walked by, and I already knew this, but it was fun to hear his 2 cents. He said a lot of times those are just ceramic caps in a fancy wrapper. And I'm not saying anything about this company Lux. I don't know. It's just my personal opinion that I think the whole cap thing is just kind of silly, because when you turn that knob, the signal's going to ground, and I really don't think it matters much. Maybe throughout the years my opinion will change, but I'm a fan of just the orange drops because they look quality, and I think they work fine. Those little tiny dinky caps you see in import guitars, like the green ones, I'm just going by looks. I don't really like those. They work. They work fine. I think the thing, if I had to play advocate on this, is that people about the oil caps is that they probably fade over time. They lose a little bit of capacitance, which maybe makes it more vintage in some way. I mean, everything drifts, right, over time, and maybe the ceramics don't drift as much as quickly. I don't know. And also, I finished up a Gretsch double anniversary, and that guitar, it came to me as just, to use the buzzword, husk. Came as a husk, and I put on the Grovers, I put on the bridge, the Bigsby, etc. And the bridge, It was one of those Gretsch space control bridges, which are cool. Music City makes a compensated one, I do believe. But the rosewood bridge base was too high. In other words, like the action was high and I needed to drop it and I couldn't. Even after filing and sanding down that bridge, and you don't want to do it too much because it loses some of its structural integrity. And so finally, after messing with that for an hour or so, I thought, you know what? The bridge needs to sit so low, I'm just going to make a bridge base. So I looked back there and we had a piece of acrylic, and I thought that this was interesting because Gretsch does use acrylic for their pick guards. So I thought maybe it would look cool as a bridge base. So I drilled the holes and then I tapped it and I fit the bridge on top and it looked awesome. Now, funny detail about this is the acrylic or plexiglass, whatever you want to call it, it came with some protective paper on one side of it. The paper was almost the same color as the side of the Gretsch because the anniversary, this one was two-toned, so it was like a yellowish green on the top and like a darker green on the sides, or the green looked brown now over time. And it just matched, and it was so cool. And not only that, but my plan worked, and it had the bridge had adjustment up and down, and so that was awesome. That guitar turned out really, really cool. I posted it on a short on my YouTube channel, and it came with Hylotron pickups. I really, really don't like those pickups. I want to, but I don't. I think that the neck sounds fine. But this is like my third instance of encountering them, the vintage ones, and the bridge is just so anemic. And I'm working on editing a video right now where I refret and restore a Gretsch Corvette, and it came with the Hylotrons, and the customer provided TV Jones replacements. And I even think in the description of the TV Jones, it says that their bridge is a little hotter output. So I think that's a known issue, but overall, I was super stoked with the way it came out. Oh yeah, one thing about the bridge Hylotron is someone had retrofitted a pole piece in there. I'm guessing maybe the other one broke or fell out, so it was just a piece of threaded screw, it looked like, and it had no way to adjust it up or down. It had no slit for the flathead screwdriver. So I took the Dremel, I made a slit, pretty deep slit, and I was glad that I did because it was sticking up so far that it was hitting the string. And so I tried really hard to give it pressure and drop it down, and that pole piece would not budge. And so the action was a little higher than I wanted it in the end because just of that pole piece, not because I don't think it couldn't have gone lower, And again, I like to talk about numbers. And I remember Dan Earlywine in some StuMac video said he's been curious about people's action his entire life. He went to see somebody play. It shows him backstage, and he said, "Can I measure your action?" And he's carrying her. I'm sure it was an advert for the StuMac action gauge, but I'm also very curious about it. So when I give you numbers, it's so that you also can start to get familiar if you're not already, and maybe you agree or disagree with my take on the numbers. But when I say high, I think on the bass side it was like 100 thousandths, and on the treble maybe it was 80 or 90, maybe it was 110 to 90. So yeah, it was a little higher than I wanted it, But anyways, it's it's a vintage guitar. Gretsch isn't known, at least their vintage guitars, for having the best neck sets. So given that, I was happy with the way it came out. This guy brought me 3 guitars that he wanted modified. One was a Squier Thinline Telly. Gonna do a pickup swap, and the other one was a pink Squier Esquire pickup swap, and another one, I forget the brand of resonator he brought me, but he wanted a strap button, and that was a nicer one. That guitar was probably $1,300 or something. But anyways, the Squire Thin Line telly, we did like a little 59. Did that in the bridge. That turned out good. The pink Squire Esquire, I did the same thing, actually. Was some sort of humbucker Duncan in a telly bridge format. So did that to 2 of his tellies. And the resonator was interesting because the strap button, it had one, or I put one on the heel, and the heel was wood. But to put one on the bottom, it was going through metal. And when I took out the screw that was there, okay, now it's all coming back to me. So he wanted a strap button on the heel. It didn't have one. It had a strap button on the bottom of the guitar, but he wanted locking Dunlop strap locks, or as a customer of the shops calls them, lockers. And he wanted lockers. And so I backed the screw out, the bottom screw that was holding the only existing strap button. And this screw was long. It was like a metal screw. It was, specially put in there. And so I thought, well, I'm going to use the same screw. So I put the screw through the Dunlop button, and the head was too big. So I had to go to the belt sander and turn down that head, and then it fit in there. So I was able to use the same screw and install those Dunlop lockers. So all 3 of those went well. I did a Kala ukulele headstock glue up. It snapped right along one row of the tuners, and I was able to glue that back up, no problem. She was stoked. I think she's a music teacher. If she's not a music teacher, she uses the ukulele in a portion of her class. The kids really like it, so getting that back was important to her. She was stoked. One of my friends and bandmates and teachers at the shop, Joe, wants to put a Charlie Christian pickup in the neck of his Telecaster, so he provided me with his pick guard, and I'm going to I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to route the neck pickup to accept the Charlie Christian. And then when he brings me the telly, we'll see what the route situation is like there. I think it's a humbucker cavity already in the body, but it still might not fit. So we'll see. And that's a Lawler Charlie Christian. And I will report back to tell y'all how that sounds. I had a Gibson Les Paul. I forget if it was a standard, a classic, I don't remember. But this might be a story for the water cooler talk, which is coming up soon, but I'll just tell it now. So this was the customer's first time in the shop. And I knew that just by talking to him, and he asked, should I pay now or later? And that's kind of an indicator because you always pay at the end. Sometimes things pop up and you need to add things to the work order, whether it be, I did a wiring harness and we upgraded from import knobs to just the standard, and now the knobs don't fit. And so we need new knobs. I'm not sure if I said that right, but some potentiometers, the import ones, the shaft is smaller. So the knobs that come with the guitar fit those shafts. But then when you upgrade the pots, now you're going to have to get new knobs. Unless you want to drill out the old ones, that's something that you don't want to do. So that's why you just pay at the end, because sometimes things happen and you need to add some stuff to the work order. So I felt him out, and I realized it was his first time, especially because of this. Now, he brought his Gibson Les Paul in for a setup, and he said, I want low action, and I want this. And he showed me something on his phone, a screenshot, and it was saying about neck relief and where the action's at and all kinds of specs. This happens, I don't know, maybe 3 times a year. Not too often, at least for me, but and those measurements were in millimeters, and I'm thousandths of an inch, so I couldn't just at a glance see if that was in the ballpark or not. But I could recognize that the neck relief, I thought, that it called for was too much relief for the low action that he wanted. And I measured what he had already. It was low. It was like 50 thousandths on the bass side and like 60 on the treble. So for me, it's a little bit personal preference. Some people like it even on both sides. I don't. I like the bass a little higher because it's a thicker string, and I like the trebles a little lower. Now, where that scale, how it slides, depends on, if you're a blues player, maybe then in that case you would like the treble slightly up. But I really don't like to have the treble higher than the bass generally. So his guitar was all out of whack, and he told me Guitar Center had it for 3 weeks and they didn't do anything to it. So I'm not sure if he was saying that Guitar Center had set it up and that's what we are looking at now. But I just told him, and when I told him what I'm about to tell you, it totally set him at ease. I told him, I said, you know, I deal in thousandths of an inch. Those are millimeters, but I will say that I know my numbers. I know what Gibson factory spec is, and I usually like to beat that. And I know what is a standard setup for a Les Paul. And if you're saying that you want lower than standard, I'm saying that I know what that is. And typically, I would set a Les Paul at, if it could, 70 thousandths on the bass, 60 on the treble. If it was buzzing on the bass, I might raise it to 80, but that's more Fender style for me. So I like to keep it at 70 if I can on the bass. And like I said, what his action was reading currently was like 50 thousandths on the bass and 60 on the treble. So I told him, I said, and he wanted nines, of course. And I said, okay, so given the shorter scale, the Gibson scale, given your light strings, and given you want low action, the reason why I don't like the specs you showed me, one of the reasons is because it's dependent on what the guitar can do. And the lower you put the action, it reveals things about the instrument, like if there's high frets, etc. And so I said, I actually want that neck straighter than what they're recommending. And then that's going to allow me to get you probably 60 thousandths on the bass, 50 on the treble. And that's lower than my standard, but those are my numbers and that's where we're at. And while I was saying all this stuff, like I said, it set him completely at ease. And he just wound up saying, do your thing. So that's what wound up happening. Actually, the guitar, for being nines on a Les Paul and having low action, it played great. I gave it to my coworker for a setup check like we always like to do. And he was like, dang, I'd play this thing. I was like, me too. Then we have the Lakeside Parlor guitar that my customer bought from a lady in a shopping cart walking around his area. And that one is going as good as it can given the guitar. So it's a neck. I wouldn't say it's a reset because the neck was off when I got it. By the way, it's a slot head also. So I think the problem is the heel is just all chewed up where it meets the body. And I've been trying, when you take the neck off and you're putting a straight edge where the dovetail is, where the pocket is, it seems pretty flat, but I can't really easily get the neck to sit flat. I've gotten it pretty good, but it was uneven on both sides. Not only that, but someone had just filed away. It looked like an arc on both sides of that dovetail, and or both sides of the heel where it meets the body, and it's just a nightmare. It's not like a standard reset where you take the neck off. Taking the neck off might be the most, the hardest part, and then you're taking an even amount off the heel that's already flat, and you're just, or you're not taking an even amount, I should say. You're taking it off where you could change the neck angle, but you're doing it, so you're trying to maintain the flat. And anyways, this thing, it's not really a neck reset. I'd say it's more of putting the neck on the body, and it's a really hard thing to do. So I think what I'm going to do, because the customer just got into refinishing, and this is going to be for his granddaughter, I do believe. And so also I should note that it is a tailpiece with a floating bridge. So maybe that puts things into perspective now. And so I do have a little wiggle room with the neck angle, or the neck cant. So anyways, I think I might do something unconventional on this one. And since he is going to paint it a solid color, I do believe, I may or may not put down wax paper on the top part of the guitar where the dovetail pocket is, and put epoxy putty on the inside by the dovetail, and then place the neck on the guitar where the fingerboard is centered down the guitar. And I imagine the epoxy putty kind of oozing out of the sides, and then the neck will be flat on the body. And then I can lift it up because I'm not trying to glue it. I'm just trying to fill where people have taken away so much material over time. Then once that hardens, I can refine it, do some sandpaper pulls, and glue it in. Option 2, because it's close right now, I've done a lot of work to it, and I think it's close, is I could just glue it as is and then stick some filler to fill the gaps, which I guess might be the easier way. So anyways, that's enough about the Lakeside Parlor. I had a really interesting Martin come in. It had it was a D-18 from the 70s, and it has 2 pick guards, one on the top, one on the bottom. And the bottom one is potato chipping. It needs to be taken off and a new one glued on. And this is the Martin that has B.B. King's autograph and 2 other people who I forget who they are, but this guy played with those people. I think I mentioned that on the last podcast. So I was able to get the pick guard off. I just peeled it off. No spatula, no nothing. It was barely hanging on. And so now I'm sanding that area, sanding and scraping, and I'm going to seal it with lacquer. So the stickum on the back of the pick guard has a solid glossy surface to stick to. So that is what's on my bench last week. That's kind of a lot. It's time now for some water cooler talk. So I went to see on Saturday, my drummer who played with me at the firefighter benefit also had a show at night at our favorite bar, and so with another group. So I went down there to see him, and I had to park like a block away, and I've been having this issue with my window. So the passenger side window, my button, the control button that raises it up and down on the driver's side, is broken. The spring's gone or something, so the button's just flopping around, and it's intermittent. Sometimes I could roll it down, sometimes I can't. So I'm trying just to like not touch it at all. And you might think, well, can you still raise it up and down from the passenger side? Sometimes, and I think it depends. If on the driver's side, if the button happens to be engaged either one way or the other, the signal won't let 2 buttons work at the same time, if that's making sense. So it's just super annoying. And my fiance and I went to the show, and I parked near this house that was having a party. I kind of did that on purpose because I didn't want to park it in a secluded area. I still had some of my PA gear from the show earlier that afternoon in my car. And I even had, and this is really bad, but I even had one of my parts casters in there. Not my Gretsch. This was a backup guitar. But it was in there, but I thought, oh, it's in a black gig bag. It's in a spot that no one can see. My windows are tinted anyways. And, you have that sinking feeling. I'll just take a risk, And the neighborhood is not so great. It's not terrible, but it's not great. It's definitely a neighborhood that you want to be aware of your surroundings in. So anyways, we park, we get out, we go to the venue, and when it was time to leave, I'm walking back to my car. I get in my car and I notice that the passenger side window is down. And in that moment, my heart just sank. And firstly, I'm thinking, how did that happen? Because when we pulled up, it was up. And it had to be the motion of maybe getting out, but when you open the door, it kills I guess the cabin lights are still on. I'm not sure. Somehow it rolled down like sneakily without me seeing it. So I'm looking around. Everything is still in my car. Everything. My guitar, the PA gear, personal effects, sunglasses. I checked the glove box. Everything. I had some cigars there. I had all kinds of stuff, and that anybody that was going in there to, steal stuff would have taken. And everything was still there. So completely shocked. Now earlier that afternoon, after my gig, my bass player Andrew and I celebrated at Islands. And I'm one of these guys. I take my guitar in everywhere with me. And I took 2 guitars, a backup, the parts caster, but my Gretsch, my main guitar, my prized possession. And I took it in Islands with me. That's how I am. And, I figure if someone were to steal that stuff, it would be sad. I can rebuild the parts caster, PA equipment I don't really care about. But I do not leave my Gretsch anywhere. I always tell people I'm taking it in to the liquor store with me. I'm taking it into the restaurant. I just couldn't handle that stolen. So for someone being kind of like that about my stuff, that's just a crazy story about my passenger side window. So this guitar cast is called This Guitar Cast. That's a good one, right? This Guitar Cast. This podcast is called All Guitars Buzz. And to a certain extent, it's tongue in cheek, but it depends on how hard you hit the guitar. And it depends if it's an electric guitar, is that, small buzz, maybe you call it micro buzz. Do you hear that through the amp? I think only if you hear the fret buzz through the amplifier in your recording is it buzz. Acoustic guitar is a little different, but all guitars buzz to a certain extent. So I've had to describe to customers over the years, probably, at least once a week, if not more, that it depends how hard you hit it and all that stuff. And when you're describing to a customer that, they'll show you the buzz and they hit it super hard. They're whacking it. They're really going for it. And then when I play like normal, like how I would normally play, and I say it's not doing it for me, then you're kind of in a standoff with him. And you have the upper hand because you want to take his money, right? That's why he came to you, because he wants to drop off his guitar that has this problem and you to fix it. And so I have the upper hand in the sense that I'm telling him it's not buzzing and I think you're just hitting it too hard. And I don't think that there's much I can do. It depends. You look at the neck and the nut, and you're obviously, if the string is buzzing open and the neck has the proper relief, and you check the nut and it's too low, there's all kinds of different situations for what I'm describing. But anyways, that's all in me leading to this Earnie Ball String Gauge guide, the complete reference. This is a pamphlet that's been on the owner's bench since the 70s. It's got duct tape on it. It's got his writing inside it. And I love this pamphlet for a number of reasons. And I could only imagine that the reason why this was invented was it was the beginnings of, strings, custom string gauges. So they give you all the, if you have a tenor guitar, what gauges that should be and what tuning. I'm seeing here it says Gretsch, and they're giving different, I guess it's giving different model strings and the different gauges, and it's just a bunch of numbers in this pamphlet basically. And now we don't have to worry about that too much. I think everybody's kind of on the same page about string gauges. But if you do have something like a banjo or something and you need to know real quick what gauges and what tuning, this pamphlet will tell you. But what I wanted to read a little bit is some of this before all the numbers, which composes the majority of the book. But it says, Introduction. This booklet has been compiled to assist both music store personnel and fretted instrument players in making the proper string gauge selections. The Earnie Ball gauge combines shown in bold point throughout this booklet are accepted as the standard of the music industry. You will notice that many have been adopted by other string companies, both in the United States and overseas, as a testimony to the practicality of our concept of providing correct and evenly balanced gauge sets capable of meeting the requirements of any musical situation. Earnie Ball custom strings, single strings may be used to replace tired or broken strings from any brand of set or to create a special custom set. Since our wound strings come in even numbered gauges only, to replace the odd numbered gauge, pick the next lower even gauge. Example, to replace 0.037, use 0.036. And then it gives some abbreviations and terms. P equals plain, W equals wound, H equals heavy, M equals medium, L equals light, but sometimes long, XL equals extra light, BRNZ equals bronze, SLK/STL equals silken steel, FLTWD equals flat round, and then it says 80/20 bronze alloy is sometimes referred to as brass. So how helpful. So this is for anybody that works in a music shop, really. And then it just continues to give plectrum, banjo, 5-string banjo, mandolin, archtop, all the numbers and all the gauges, pedal steel guitar, metric conversion chart, bouzouki, dulcimer. So you could imagine how useful something like this is. But on the very back page, it says string action and string buzz checklist. These procedures are valid for both adjusting string action and also troubleshooting the exclusive buzz, the elusive buzz. Important. Check each item in sequence. If not, you may compound an otherwise simple problem. Okay, so basically it's talking different sections here: strings, pickups, neck rod, neck set, frets, bridge, nut. So all that stuff is kind of standard. I'm not going to read this whole pamphlet. But the bottom, it says you, question mark, explanation point, question mark, explanation point. Are you picking like King Kong on super light strings set to low action? This situation will create buzz and rattle even on the most perfectly adjusted guitar. Drive the amp for big volume, explanation point. So this pamphlet, it's 1977. It's copyrighted. So also, I think a reason why they may have created this and some of the phrasing there is you can imagine being a string company and people just sending you mail after mail. The mail bags must have been huge with like, these strings don't work, my guitar is buzzing. Could you imagine that? Like, I think back in the day, they only had a couple strings, like Black Diamond, and like, you go to CVS or your pharmacy and there'd just be guitar strings there. So now when Earnie Ball came along with all these different gauges and they're really thinking about, the bass side and the treble side and how thick and thin these strings need to be to work together to feel even when you're playing them. And not only that, but different companies make different, gauges and what their equivalents are and etc. People must have been, just like they are now, confused about buzzing and I just love that last passage about picking like King Kong with low action. You know, how classic is that? So I've seen the owner actually show this pamphlet to people who are having this problem in the nicest way. Because if you tell them like, hey, you're picking too hard, that can come across a certain kind of a way. But, you know, if you tell them that and then read them that passage about picking like King Kong, it's kind of puts them at ease again. But that's something, you know, to take into consideration. I even tell people, okay, you're playing a Les Paul, you're playing nines, you want the action low, and you might even want to go down a pick gauge, use some light picks, because it's all about the attack and the feel. That's how you can get away with what you desire, you know. And then I'll tell them, I love this one, not sure if I've mentioned it before, but I give the analogy, it's like turning your car into a lowrider. You can't go over those speed bumps anymore at, 40 miles an hour. You got to go over them, at 5 miles an hour. You got to adjust. You can't turn your car into a lowrider and then just start driving around like it was before. I don't know why folks think that they don't have to adjust. Just like intonation is the player's ability to play in tune. What most people come to me for is they want their string length compensation adjusted. But of course, we've just come to use the word intonation, for both. But that's the Earnie Ball String Gauge Guide, 1977. Super cool piece of history. Some projects that I have in the balance. Well, I took a drink there. How rude. I have the blue Squire Strat that I'm turning into a Telly loadout. And I'm repainting Daniel from Resurrects and Project Skeleton. I'm repainting his ESP, Serviceman guitar, pink Kramer with Telly neck. The Recording King, I'm going to paint a cool color. An upright bass a customer dropped off for a new bridge. I'm finishing up my CNC. My buddy Andrew dropped off his White Falcon for adjustment, and my buddy Dave dropped off his Yamaha made in Japan. It's like a rare model. I think it's like called Model 2000 or 9000. I forget what it's called. It's like a rare guitar. Needs electronics work and a setup. That's all the stuff right now I have in the balance. That actually equals stress for me, on top of shows that I'm playing and my normal job, and I'm trying to get done as much as I can on the 2 days a week I have off and before and after work. And it's hard. It's hard, man. So the blue Squire Strat, I noticed that, so I filled the back cavity with epoxy, which I've mentioned the whole story on pretty sure all the episodes so far. Well, it was right side up on the table, and I picked it up and there was some goop on the table, and I realized that goop was leaking out of the side wall there. A little crack had formed, and I thought, shoot, man, so not only I did use heat with that one too. So don't use heat with Total Boat epoxy. And when I say heat, like a lighter, I'm not even sure I'd use a heat gun. I really don't. If you're worried about bubbles, I've done it since then without anything, and it hasn't, no bubbles have formed. It's not crystal clear. You still see like some mineral, it looked like mineral water or something, but it's hard and there's no divots. So I'd just stay away from that. And if you're pouring a countertop, that's something else. But if you're using it to fill a cavity, just stay away from a lighter or a heat gun, because it affects the set. When it sets, it can accelerate it and crack. So anyways, it worried me because I thought, shoot, there's unset epoxy under the hard layer on the top. But I was able to get a razor blade in there and scrape out all the goopy, sticky stuff. And I put a bunch of thin inside the crack that hardened. And then there was about an 1/8 inch gap until it was flush with the body. So I went ahead and poured more Total Boat on top of that. Applied no heat. It hardened hard as a freaking rock. And I can even see through all the different layers. And it looks fine. So that guitar I have sanded, and I'm prepping to spray it, and that's going to be the test for the ESP that I'm refinishing. That's the serious refinish job. So the Blue Squire, it's going to have a telly bridge and just the regular 70s style affinity neck that came with it. I'm going to spray it black. And how I'm going to do it, because lacquer doesn't really adhere good to the urethane sealer coat per se. I mean, maybe, but it does stick to the vinyl sealer. So I plugged all the pickguard holes and sanded it. I actually need to route a couple things before I spray it. So after I route what I need to route, I'm going to spray it with the top coat sand vinyl sealer. And then I'm going to spray it with black lacquer. And then I'm going to spray it with clear. And that's going to be the test for the ESP, which is pretty much the same thing. It has a urethane sealer coat that is really thick on there. And I was asking a bunch of my friends that refinish, including a guy who I really respect. He used to work for Taylor forever, does great work. And he said that he thinks I could spray over the urethane sealer coat with lacquer as long as I use the vinyl sealer first. And he gave me instruction on how to do so. So that's good, because I don't want to strip it to the wood because it's mahogany. And so trying to grain fill, and that would just set me back a lot. So the urethane coat is pretty thick too. It seems like it's like 3 seconds or something. It's like thick. So, and it's smooth for the most part. There are divots and stuff where my scraper, when I was using heat to get the black poly off, I hit the body in a couple spots. But also the main reason why Daniel wants it refinished is that there were a number of dings in it. So I'm filling those right now. And then I'm going to sand it up to 400, which is what I was instructed to do. Then I'm going to hit it with the vinyl sealer, and then the black lacquer, and then clear. So, the Serviceman guitar, haven't done anything with that. The pink Kramer with the telly neck, haven't done anything with that because I have to route for the Kaler Flyer. I'm going to use that for the bridge. And it's hard to determine where, because on the bottom of the Kaler, just like the Mustang Dynamic Vibrato, it has springs, so you can't necessarily lay it flat on the guitar to find out kind of where it should be. You can do your measurements, but I like to freaking clamp the bridge onto the body, and if I can clamp it safe to where it's not making dents in the guitar, and then I can put the two E's on, tune it up. I don't want to tune it up all the way because you're clamping it on the body, but tune it up to, I don't know, C or D, and then check the intonation and make sure everything is where it needs to be. That's how I like to install bridges. And so I realized digging through my box of bridge parts that I have a flat, it's a hardtail Kaler. It looks just like a Kaler would, but there's no springs on the bottom. Why would Kaler make something like that? I've seen them on tellies before, I don't know. So I think I'm going to use that to get the general area of where it needs to be. And then I'll route for the Kaler and do that. The Recording King, no progress on that. The upright bass, I'm going to get started on that today. I told the customer a month or so, but I've just been busy, so I'm going to fit the bridge, I should say. The sound post is in, so that's good. When the sound post falls out, that's more money to get, you're just playing. I hate putting sound posts in. One day I'm going to work on a sound post design, I think. That's easier than just a stick with, anyways. So I'm going to do that. Work on my CNC. I had to order a part because there was a broken piece, and CNC Labs is so great. I sent them a picture. I told them what happened. They could have easily thought that I broke it and I didn't pull it out of the package that way. But I also figured that what broke the plastic piece was pretty easy to break, considering it was in a box with a bunch of extruded aluminum and stuff, and it probably happens. every so often. And he didn't even hesitate, the rep there. He said, I'll send you another one. So that's awesome. Great company. Good experience with them so far. My buddy's White Falcon, Andrew, it had a headstock break before that I fixed. Now it just needs to be set up. Then my buddy Dave's Yamaha, the shredder one, needs electronics work and a setup. It has like 3 toggles or maybe more. It has a bunch of toggles, like a Super Strat set neck type situation. So basically, all this stress and all this stuff that I need to do, sometimes because I'm passionate about what I do and I like to help people get their instruments back, sometimes I forget that, these actually have a value. And I'm not really going to give you my numbers on the repairs and stuff because I just don't want to at this point. Sometimes, anyways. But, all those things I just mentioned, once they are done, and sold, all is said and done, it's probably going to be right at like $2,000, so that should be motivation for me to get that stuff done. And I've been pretty good, honestly, considering everything I got going on, trying to do a little each day, but I work 5 days a week at my shop, and that takes a lot of my time. And then when I get home, sometimes I'm just like, sometimes I'll do a little something, but recently I've just been so incredibly exhausted. I basically just go right to bed. So, all right, time for customer stories. Had some interesting phone calls and interesting customer experiences. So this lady called me up and asked how much it was to re-glue the bridge on her guitar. And, I always say the same thing. I say, well, without seeing it, just giving you some type of ballpark so you can decide whether or not you want to come down. I could give you a better estimate when you're here, but it's probably going to be around like $150 to re-glue the bridge on that. And she was just, her tone was not nice with me, was snippy. She said she felt like she just got slapped in the face. Now that is strong word, because she's cold calling me and I don't know who she is. I don't know if she has money, doesn't have money, but regardless, I feel, cause we do quality work. We don't, the bridge looks like it never came off, not only that, but we, sand everything appropriately. We'll flatten out the areas. We'll really make sure it has good connection. And so, she followed it up by saying, I got a new bridge on my violin and it was only $30. And I was thinking, okay, from a guy that used to do that at a previous shop, I was like, all right. And then she said, that's the cost of a new guitar, my estimate. Which, that comment, again, I didn't know if it was a 70s D-18. I didn't know if it was a Jasmine. I don't know. She didn't give me that information. So that is the thing that I'll tell customers. Actually, I told a customer the other day, and she bought a parlor Gretsch for her daughter. She brought me some no-namer guitar, and the bridge was way lifting up, like a half an inch. Like, I was like, you should take the tension down on that. It could be dangerous, Anyways, so yeah, that definitely, if it's a cheapie with no sentimental value, just buy a new guitar from Guitar Center, This guy came in with a custom bass. Oh, he called me on the phone first and said that, he had an intermittent an intermittent issue. Maybe he talked to my coworker. I don't remember that part, but he brought it in and it definitely was like a homemade custom bass. And he said he had to hit it to make it work. And I was like, okay. So I take it to my bench, plug it in, and it works. And this happens a lot. This might happen like 80% of the time. And I always make the customer feel at ease. And I'll say, of course it works for me, but it won't work at your gig, right? So, I believe you that it's not working. It's just going to be how much of my time do you want to pay for to have me troubleshoot? That's always the issue. So, but with this case, what I was trying to, I could tell he just wanted me to drop it off and try to fix it. And the problem is I don't really work on circuit boards. I've tried to in the past. Again, a lot of troubleshooting. Sometimes it's a cold solder, connection, but just don't do it. So he said that it was like fading, his signal was like fading. I checked the jack, I checked the batteries, those were all good. I said, well, from what you're describing, it does sound like it could be a tired or bad preamp, and you should just take it to this other shop down the street, because they work on amps, which means they work on circuit boards, and that's where we send customers that have those types of problems. He looked at me like he didn't want to do it, like he just wasn't going to take no for an answer. He did not. And I could just read this on his face. He wasn't making a stink, but he said, "Can't you just, And I said, "I can't. I just told you I can't. No. I'm thinking in my head, no matter how many times you ask me, like." And so this is what I told him. I told him, "I'm not trying to send you to the other shop to get rid of you. I'm sending you to the other shop because they can help you. I'm trying to help you. And, you're going to have to wait." Oh, I think here was the other thing. He needed it like ASAP. There's always a caveat. And I said, I'm going to have it for 2 weeks, and it could be up to $85 for me to try to do stuff, and it might not work. There's no guarantees. So just take it to where I'm telling you they can help you. And he finally just said, okay. And then he went there, I think. So I don't know. I just think that's funny. Had a phone call. There was a guy, I believe he was of the boomer generation, and he was calling about a Harmony archtop that he saw on our website, and he wanted to know if it had rich bass and how did it play. And at the moment, I wasn't doing any kind of tedious repairs, so I humored him a little bit, and I thought he would appreciate that I was taking my time. I mean, where can you call? You definitely can't call Guitar Center and say, "Hey, will you play this guitar for me over the phone and tell me what you think?" What's funny about that is everything's about credibility, and he doesn't know me from Adam. He doesn't know that I'm credible. I could just be some 16-year-old shop kid who, sells strings and picks all day, even though we don't have that, but he doesn't know, right? So, he doesn't know that I'm a tech is what I'm saying. So anyway, so I pick it up, I'm strumming, I'm playing cowboy chords, and I say, the action isn't low, it's not high though. And I said, it's got some bass, but it's mostly mid range. And, that's very typical for these guitars. And he's saying, yeah, but how does it sound? He's one of those guys where like you're telling him, you're answering his question exactly, but he doesn't hear it, And then he's saying, well, how high is the action? And he rattled something off in millimeters. And I said, well, I'm thousandths of an inch, so I could tell you that. So I get my gauge and I measure and I tell him, and he said, oh, well, that doesn't help me at all. And, his tone changed to kind of frustrated after I'm going way above and beyond here. I have no stake in whether he buys this, guitar, but we sell guitars, all to people all over the United States. We ship guitars. So I said, are you local? And he said, yes. And so then my tone changed, and I said, just come in and play it then. And he said, well, he just was repeating himself, again. I just want a rich bass sound. I said, okay, cool. Well, then just come in and play it. And that's the best way. And he said, okay, I will. And I never saw him. This classical guitar came back because she wanted the saddle compensated, and we didn't compensate it. And so I looked at the guitar, and it was a Fender Classical, super cheap, something you might pick up on Shop Goodwill for $30, something that maybe new is $120. Anyways, so I looked at it, and so what we did do is we restrung it, and we cleaned and oiled the board, we polished it up, and we adjusted the action. So her complaint was the intonation, but the action was super high. So dropping the saddle and getting the strings closer to the board will help. And there wasn't, because of how low we had to drop the saddle, there was no room for compensation. Like the string was almost like hitting the sidewalls of the bridge. So I explained to her that that's what was happening, that we couldn't compensate it, but I told her all the things that we could do. And I said, that's very standard for, these guitars to not be compensated absolutely perfect. But I told her it is also standard to have compensation on classicals. I've seen it, especially with the G pushed all the way back. But she was cool with everything. I gave her a couple bucks back because her expectation wasn't set correctly, and that's our bad. And she was happy, and I said, do you strictly play a classical guitar? And she said, no, I play steel string too. I play all kinds of stuff. She was wearing like a Social Distortion sweater, so I was like, okay, cool. If you want to continue on with the classical, you just I'd say get one, a better one. And she was like, okay. So all was good there. And then I had a conversation with a customer. Our shop is selling right now a custom shop Jaguar, and it comes with one of those RSD bridges. And so we were talking about it. I was talking about how good that bridge sounds, and I don't like Jaguars. I don't like the short scale. I don't like the plunky sound they get. I don't like the weird sounds behind the bridge. I'm just not a offset guy in the traditional way. My parts caster is a Jazzmaster body with a telly loadout, telly neck. Love it. Everything about that guitar I love. The only thing about Jazzmasters and Jaguars that I like is the shape. Everything else about the offset is not for me. But anyways, this one sounds really good. Not plunky, very resonant. I'm not sure if it had 11s on it, but it probably does, because it sounded stable, felt stable, looked good. And yeah, I was just commenting on how you can't really buy those RSD bridges, unless they come up used. But who would take them off their guitar? They're so great. And I said, I could imagine the only people that would take them off are people that love mastery, which I think is fair, because people that love mastery, they definitely do that thing that they're supposed to do. And I don't like the way they look, but I think they're a good bridge, a good upgrade. And he was saying that, well, no one would really. Why would you do that? Because the mastery sounds more like a Stratocaster bridge, and the RSD sounds more like a traditional Jazzmaster bridge or Jaguar bridge, and it rocks and all that stuff. And I was thinking, okay, I hear your point, but do you hear mine? My point is that, yeah, this bridge is great, but I could see the people that would take it off probably are going to put a mastery on there. I wasn't saying they would put the traditional bridge or anything else. I was specifically saying mastery. And so anyway, he left, and I got to thinking about it. I just got, a wild hair. So I went on Reverb and I typed in RSD bridge, and one that had sold came up, and I clicked on it, and there was actually, the RSD bridge had sold for $500. So supply and demand, because Fender doesn't sell them. So somebody had to take that off their guitar. And then the question is, why would they take it off? And then I noticed something. The RSD bridge was sitting in the mastery tin with the hay. The packaging that comes with mastery, the RSD bridge was sitting in the listing. So my exact scenario played out in front of my eyes, that whoever had the RSD bridge didn't like it, and they replaced it with the mastery, and now they sold it for a premium. So I was right. Not right, but I don't think they could understand the point that I was trying to make. So that was my point. Marketplace fun. So somebody was interested in my Coronado body I have for sale with the original bridge, which almost looks like a Mustang bridge, but it's floating. It has some, I don't know what you call them, it's some mount for it. It doesn't, there's no holes through the body. It's like a dime or penny shaped platform. Anyways, super cool bridge. You don't see them often, with the tailpiece with the rosewood F or the ebony F. Anyways, super cool. Just the body, it's stripped. I have it up there for $500. And this guy I know from my shop, he's actually bought stuff from me on Marketplace before, said that he wanted to get it. And he was asking me questions about it. He said, I have no problem with the price. I said, okay, when can you meet? He said, tomorrow. I said I could bring it to my shop, no problem. So I brought the guitar to the shop, and he just no-showed. He no-showed on me. So this is a guy that I don't know him well. I just know him. He comes in probably 2 times a year into the shop, bought a couple of things from me previously on Marketplace. But anyways, so I just kept it at the shop. I didn't think anything of it. And then he messaged me saying something came up for work, even though he told me it was his day off. So that didn't make much sense to me. But anyways, he's apologized and said, I can meet tomorrow. And I said, fine. And so I figured I'll already be at work anyways. He could come anytime he wants. So the 30 minutes that I step outside for lunch, he comes and I'm not there. And he didn't wait for me. I mean, I could imagine whenever anybody else comes for any one of my coworkers and they're at lunch, we always say, oh, he left 10 minutes ago. He's just going to Sprouts down the street. He'll probably be back in 10 minutes. And they'll just wait, especially if you want to buy something, But this guy just left and he didn't message me again about it. So, yeah, Marketplace fun, right? My video where I repair a Martin X series is available on my YouTube channel. That's awesome. And I am currently working on a video from 6 months ago where I restored and refretted a Gretsch Corvette. So, and it also has the Hylotrons. So that should be a good one I'm working on. If you want to connect with me on Instagram, I'm Kenneth_Hillington. If you want to visit my YouTube, it's at Hillington Guitars. Guitars is plural. And if you want to contact me on anything you've heard here, it's allguitarsbuzz@gmail.com. Thank you all for listening. Have a wonderful week. Until next time. See ya. Later.